Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. How you doing?
Hey, can you see me this time or not?
Yes, I can see you. You look great.
Yay, thank you. Happy about it. Finally.
Hello
So,
and happy
it's
holidays. Or okay, so
oh yeah.
I only
Can you
just
see
learned
the
this.
tree?
Yeah, and it looks fantastic.
Thanks.
I only just learned this. You Orthodox Christmas isn't the same as non-Orthodox Christmas?
It's kind of weird in the sense that Soviet Union and communism destroyed religion here in terms like physically, literally ruined the thing. So most people did not celebrate anything in terms of religious holidays because it was prohibited. So it was weird for a while. Nobody celebrated anything. And then people started to celebrate shit, but with another date than the rest of Christians do. So the 7th of January instead of, how the rest of the people do it.
So you would
It's a
say
long story, but
the Soviet Union is
yeah,
Grinch-like then.
sort of. That's a good way to put it for sure. Yeah, it's a little bit weird because people are strange here in terms of religion because they're kind of religious, but not in the way that American people are. Yeah. So sorry, I will make myself a little bit less loud if I can. Or is it fine? Does it sound okay?
Oh, you sound good on my end. I turned you up. You were actually a bit quiet at first.
Oh yeah. Maybe I need to turn myself up, or is it all right now?
Oh, I boosted you on my side.
Okay, good. Thank you. Basically, people are weird as fuck in terms of religion here because they say they're religious, but they are not religious in the way that American people are. So you would not hear like Jesus that, Jesus this every 5 seconds. you know so I got so many messages from nice messages from people after I appeared on CNN, but there was so much Jesus there. Like, I pray for you, like Jesus, I pray for you, praying for your family, praying for Ukraine, God is with you, stuff like that. It's a bit cringe in terms of Ukraine. People like don't talk about God that much, and about
Yeah.
Jesus as
Uh,
well.
well, you know how imperious and arrogant we can be with projecting our religion across the globe. Still, Christianity still like the the number one vehicle through which we express our sympathy to our allies abroad, which is really, really, really weird. The thoughts and prayers stuff is kind of like a meme in America. Like if something bad happens
Hmm.
and people are like, "Oh yeah, thoughts and prayers," that gets made fun of because it doesn't actually do anything. But even liberal outlets will still do it with stuff going on abroad. So it feels like
Yeah.
we still get away with it when it's not within our own country.
It also kind of, I think they meant it actually because most of them were a bit older. Like, people who found me at first were found me on Facebook, which is where all the boomers are, right? So, so basically, they were mostly like older people, like 40 plus people and 50 plus people, and they I think were pretty genuine in their like religious stuff, which I appreciate. The thought, but I was a little bit surprised by the amount of Jesus, which was yeah,
Well,
interesting.
and that's how
Because
I
even
feel.
religious,
Oh no, go on.
yeah, sorry. I basically am like an atheist. I have always been like since birth. Basically, I was not raised religious. So for me, people who are religious here, I know them. They're my friends. I respect them a lot. And it's not the religion itself. It's just the sheer amount of Jesus.
No, yeah, it's
Also,
kind of a weird divide in the states where in major cities, in most like high density urban areas, you never see Christianity or Jesus brought up at all, or at least
huh.
very rarely. And then in the rural areas, it's all Jesus land. I mean, you never hear anything but about
Yes,
Jesus. And
literally.
the compromise is that liberal institutions, politicians, what have you, the compromise they have is that they'll be religious, but in a very quiet and polite way. So, like Joe Biden, right,
Hmm.
who's been a practicing Catholic his entire life, will just like very
Hmm.
occasionally, like, and God bless the troops or whatever, and that's all he'll do. And that's like the middle ground in what is otherwise like an extremely wide gulf in terms of religiosity.
Yeah, I noticed that the president also like shakes the Bible every now and then. Not like obnoxiously, but
Yeah,
does the rituals basically. It's pretty interesting. I only honestly thought America was less religious, I guess.
it's
But apparently not. Like half the population is pretty religious, half is not. As it seems like, conservative people will be like more religious, right? And liberal sogdams, whatever, would be like more less religious, I guess.
yeah, it's moving pretty quickly.
Um,
I think the number of atheists in the United States, it's like going up massively. I think the number of like religiously unaffiliated people is something like 30% right now. But a lot of the people who
hmm,
identify with Christianity do so in the most like distant way imaginable. It's like, they put up a Christmas tree and maybe they've gone to church
like
once.
me.
Right, but I put up a Christmas tree, but they're like culturally Christian, but they don't engage with the religion. I think it's like 50-50 in terms of actively religious now in the States, which is pretty wild.
That's in here. It's like most people like that. So they will say, yeah, I believe in God, but they like don't go to church and shit. So
Oh God, I
basically, like
wish.
it's like a ritual, basically here.
Wish.
So there's some people who are religious for sure, but most people. But to be fair to them, the way it was done, like I am all pro atheism. I was like when I was in Czechia, almost everyone is atheist there in Czech Republic, and I was like, holy shit, it feels so good. But then the way it was done by Soviets is not the way to do it, in my
No,
opinion.
I'm not.
So
I'm
you
not
know,
endorsing this the Soviet
yeah,
model of eradicating religion by persecuting like its institutions and then quietly bringing back the Orthodox Church because so many people got mad they wouldn't go to work. I'm not.
yeah.
I don't endorse their methods. It seems kind of counterproductive. Um,
Not to mention the fact that they literally like destroyed churches, stole the fucking like how do you call it, bells, like golden bells from there, like paintings. They like ruined everything pretty that was here just because I don't know why. Honestly, they just hate pretty things apparently.
yeah, I
So,
do want the
it was
bells.
done in a very yeah, it was done in a pretty barbaric way, and prosecution, in my opinion, is not the way to go. But it is what it is. People then started to practice religion somewhat with a little bit of a vigor, like overcompensating in the 90s. Basically, people would start wear crosses, like obnoxious big crosses and stuff like that in the 90s to sort of like return to, I guess, religion when it was not prohibited any longer. But it died down then. After all, people
Well,
got like tired of it.
it's the
And
countercultural thing, right? Like now that you're not any longer under the thumb of the Soviets, like how do you express your Ukrainian patriotism? Well, by adopting all the symbology that the Soviets denied you, like
yeah,
overt Christianity.
by wearing an extremely tacky crosses, of course.
We still have those over here too.
uh, yeah. Are they like gold and shit or?
Oh yeah, God yeah, for sure. I mean, literally, have you seen what Kanye West has been up to lately? That guy is like the archbishop of incredibly tacky Christian merchandise. Like like these big wait, hold on. Kanye West sweaters, I think. He has these like gigantic Christ is King branded.
Oh, I saw that. So cringe.
No,
Ew.
yeah, with these huge like crosses and stuff. I'm trying to find because he puts out so much merchandise. It's really difficult. Well, here's one of him as Jesus Christ, which feels kind of sacrilegious, I guess. But
I really don't see you, by the way. So if that
Oh,
could
did I
be
not hit the
fixed,
button?
yeah, I'm
Oh,
staring at my set for sure.
sorry. There you go.
Oh, my way better, way better.
my my
Staring at yourself is not pleasant.
I forgot to hit. Whoa, whoa, whoa. That's not true. I forgot to hit the button.
Professional YouTuber,
Uh,
professional, true professional here,
oh,
right?
don't even. I This is far from the worst I've done. Just yesterday I had an interview with the the project manager for the National Trans Survey, and I forgot to
Hmm.
publicize the survey participation to my audience before it closed. So there was a couple thousand respondents we could have gotten who we didn't because I just completely fucking forgot.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
oh, I also have a new camera, by the way, for the people. Like, hey, everyone, by the way, who's watching, because this one does not ruin my face that much. The last one, cheap one I had, it was like distorting, like disrupting the image. Basically, it was like doing some weird voodoo shit with my face. It was like not properly proportioned. But this camera is better, so people can, see the thing
No,
as it is.
you look great. And also we have a working internet
Thank you.
connection this time. Here, wait, I just as a
Yes.
curiosity, I'm linking to you the stupid fucking one of Kanye's like
Oh,
very loud
Kanye
sweaters.
West. Oh shit, it's so tacky.
And see,
Bleh,
you
God,
see the
oh.
Christ on the sleeve? It's very funny.
Yes.
I kind of
Oh,
like it.
no, that's bad. It's like 90s Ukraine, basically, aesthetics.
There. Oh, dude, holy shit! 90s Ukraine
We're
was just a
past
bunch of
that.
Kanye's walking around. That's fucking amazing.
Hmm.
Can we see it? Wait,
Yeah.
chat. I just
In
showed
terms
you.
of style.
Um, God, they have the drip.
Hello, Chad.
Oh wait,
Hey.
somebody in chat wanted me to ask you.
Hmm.
Right before you picked up the call, have you ever watched or read Naruto?
Yeah, I did watch the entire thing and read it too. I was an anime geek when I was
Oh
a
shit!
teen.
Even
Yeah.
Shippuden?
Yes.
Okay, you're
Which
ahead.
I have thoughts on.
Okay, well shit.
Not.
Don't share them. You're ahead of me then. Fuck. Okay, there you go, chat.
Yeah. I did watch it. I actually watched a lot of anime, but I mostly liked more grim, serious shit. So my favorite thing is anime called Monster, which is
Oh, I love Monster.
Monster in English. It is fucking amazing. I love it.
Um, that's the one with the. No, that's not the one with the hand. The one with the hand is Parasite.
Ah,
Okay, no, yeah, Monster is one. I always
no,
get
no.
those mixed up.
That one is. This one is pretty serious shit, like crypto-fascists, Nazis, um, good stuff.
Hey, that's what we're
Historical,
talking about today.
yeah, genocide and shit, and personal relationship of one Japanese doctor with his consciousness and his vow as a doctor not to hurt people, but knowing that the hurted people actually will save a lot of other people. Pretty interesting stuff. We talk about philosophy, detective lines. It's very like mystical, but at the same time very realistic. Pretty great and very smart, in my
Okay,
opinion.
well, shit, I'll bump it up
Yeah,
to my list then, because I don't think I've seen it.
but it is depressing though, I must say. It's a pretty sad story, pretty tragic.
8.8 on my anime list. Oh my god, they don't throw those out for anyone. You you gotta have either
Long
a
list.
lot of high quality writing or a lot of pedophilia to get that high up on the anime rankings.
It has a lot of quality writing, I
Yes,
must.
it's yes. Okay, yeah, I'll put it up there.
Oh, about that, about the pedophilia, obviously. So people linked me like Kharkiv's kid finder,
Hmm. Oh yeah,
and I was like,
I
what
went
the
over there to
fuck?
contribute to the service. I That meme got a Reuters fact check. I got a Reuters article dedicated to me because of that. It was incredibly
Yeah,
funny.
people send me your fans. They send me it and show me. I was asking them like, what the fuck is that? And they were like, oh. But when I saw them, were they like implying you're like a pedophile or is it me?
Oh no, for sure. I think I okay, I genuinely don't know if the original meme was made by people who like me or people who don't like me. I don't know. I don't think I'm ever going to know. Um but yeah,
That tells a lot about your fans.
oh yeah, that was definitely the implication. I do think I'm glad Elijah Schaefer tweeted it though because it ended up creating one of the funniest like, you know, miniature debacles of the year. And I was happy to help out
I
in
am
Ukraine, you know.
I am confused, I'm here in Kharkiv and shit, and I never seen you
I'm very
helping those,
fast.
children.
I'm very fast. I keep low
You
to the ground.
Oh, yeah, you're very fast with your helping children ways.
You scooting them around. They're children, okay? They're light.
Supernatural ability.
Yeah,
That's what it said to
it says
find
supernatural.
children.
Of course I'm fast.
Yeah.
God, that was
Well,
earlier this year. March 3rd. That was right after the invasion started. Oh my god, I went over there quickly.
mhm. Yeah, you just jumped right in. They call Dylan war tourist or some shit like that, which I don't like, by the way. But the real war tourist was you all along. You just came to see those Ukrainian children, help them.
Oh yeah, for
Good
sure.
job.
I was right on the thick of it. I hate that
It
term
is.
war tourist, by the way. I feel like
I do too. I do too as
I know
well.
there's
Yeah.
a small group of people it has to actually apply to, but I feel like if you're doing independent journalism near the front, I don't know like why you would ever try to stigmatize that. You have to have brass balls to even try. I don't know why. Like it's
Mm.
like it's so obviously good behavior. I don't know. People are weird.
Yeah, I don't like it, especially when they use it on Dylan because he's nothing like that, even remotely. Um, Genuine person in every way, in terms of the way he cares for Ukraine and for what is going on, and wants to show, Ukrainian voices. And he's truly nothing like a person who just came here for the thrill or some shit or for the clout. So it's really, pisses me off when I see stuff like that about him, because it's just not true. I spent some time with the guy. I feel like I know. So
He
yeah.
got back to the States and I talked to him, and the first thing he said was like, "Yeah, I can't wait to go back." You fucking lunatics,
Yep.
man. How the fuck am I ever going to watch Shippuden if I'm not doing so from the comfort of my not bombed Seattle apartment? Jesus.
Oh, you live in Seattle? Cool.
Yeah, so
I have a friend who lives there.
if things ever go red alert between the US and Russia, I get to go first. Seattle's, I think, literally like one of the closest major cities. So that's me putting
Oh,
myself at risk, okay? For the Ukrainian people.
oh, very brave, I must say.
I gotta try my best.
Truly brave warrior of Ukraine. Well, come on, I will stop joking about that shit. It's just, I think you've done plenty, honestly, in terms of coverage and stuff like that, which is pretty important. And I also know you did a fundraiser or something like that, which is also, I think, quite good. And
Oh,
you don't have to be like here to,
oh
to
no, no,
do stuff.
don't worry. You don't need to soothe my ego at all with any of the Ukraine stuff. The work you've done is incredible. Here, look. My idiot cat came by.
Oh,
The work you've
the
done is
cat.
incredible. There's no comparison.
What's the name? What's the name?
Artemy.
Aw,
Look at this.
cute.
Look at this fucking guy.
Yeah,
Hmm?
he looks awesome, I must
Yeah.
say.
Oh,
I wanna
there we go. He wants to bite me. 'Cause he's hungry.
that position though.
Oh, he's
I uh
extremely agreeable. Look at
I
him.
I aspire to be like this cat, honestly.
Yeah, he's so soft. He's so stupid. He's so fat. I woke up this
Yeah.
morning to him throwing up on one of my t-shirts because he overate kibble.
Aw,
Artemy.
poor guy.
Burp, burp.
Poor t-shirt as well, obviously.
Yeah, it'll
But yeah,
survive.
I really want to be this cat. I just want to chill and do nothing and be stupid. That's my dream
Bop, bop,
life.
bop, 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 bop. Here, be free. Whoop, whoop,
Mm.
whoop.
Okay, that was cute. Thank you.
Okay, there we
I appreciate it.
go.
I wish I could show you my rabbit, but he's in the room where my sister is, and I think she's also asleep already. So,
That's fair.
you know,
I know rabbits are more
yeah,
skittish about being held sometimes anyway.
he's fine. He's so old that he doesn't care, I think,
Aw.
about anything, about bombs and shit. He's like, fuck it, don't care.
Rabbits are one of my
Yeah, which
favorite
is pretty.
pets.
Oh, he's cute. I will maybe send you a pic or something
Oh, yeah, please
at
do.
some point.
I'm sure you have it on Twitter
Yeah,
somewhere. Um,
yeah, I do. His name is Ponchik, which is donut in English.
so
Yeah.
a couple of people in chat have been screaming at me that you're going to epically own me in a debate. And I've been getting ready this entire time with all of my bad faith rhetorical tactics. But I have
Um,
forgotten what it is we're debating about. Would you mind reminding me?
Yeah, honestly, I wouldn't call it a debate. You people are literally obsessed with the debate stuff. I'm like, I would like to call it a conversation where I express my, let's put it like that, concerns with some things you said. And I would like you and your audience to hear my concerns and to think about it a bit. That's what I want.
Sure.
So
Hit me up.
that's about it. Yeah, basically, I would like to point out first and foremost that I really appreciate your coverage of Ukraine, and I pretty much agree with, from what I've seen, with like 95% of stuff you say, if not more. So it's not like some huge ass thing. But what happened is basically I heard your comments about Azov, and in a video, and also people send me your tweets about them, which I should have pulled up probably, but I will quote, like, not directly, but your words that you said. And I when I heard it, it was, I think, in maybe April, I'm not sure. My life is a bit weird. I don't remember dates when I heard people saying stuff,
That's
but you were
reasonable.
covering basically what was going on, and I was watching your video. This is how I stumbled basically upon you. and realized you're the last good lefty on YouTube, basically. But the last hope of the Western leftists. But other than that, this phrase, I will admit, did hurt quite a bit, especially because I respect you a lot, and you're not like a tanky, dude that calls me a Nazi whore and everything with Ukraine is Nazi. So these people I don't care about. I don't want to talk about them. Fuck them. But you saying what you said is it was a bit rough. And what you said was basically that Azov guys should pretty much put guns in their mouths and like kill themselves, and you would be like happy about it, basically. Not
Uh-huh.
a direct quote, but the gist of it. Also, as people showed me your tweets when you said like, be careful guys to post locations of Ukrainian troops, not to like dox their location to the enemy unless they're Azov. This one. And the comments that people wrote to that were even worse than what you said. But I will not hold you accountable for the stuff that people in the comments says. I will like talk to you about what you said. So this, I will probably share a story first. I know facts and stuff are important, but here's a little bit of a story. So you wished pretty much to the entirety of Azov battalion to die. And you said you would be happy if they die. And people in your comments said a lot of stuff like, yeah, put them to the meat grinder, stuff like that. And me and quite a lot of Ukrainians were highly offended by that shit. And I will try to explain why in the best way I can. So to answer me this, for starters, are you of the opinion that literally most people or like every person in Azov is a Nazi? Is this your opinion?
No, no, not every. If I so I mean nobody has exact numbers. It's the Azov
Sure.
battalion was like a regional defense group that emerged kind of of their own volition during a period of time where Ukraine had essentially no military capabilities, and they ended up getting
Yes.
involved in the fighting in the Donbass pretty quickly against the Russian proxy invasion. And a lot of the Azov group people were like banned the right ultra nationalists. There were a lot of far right people there, but because it was also like a regional defense thing, a lot of people get pulled in on that. I don't I don't know the exact numbers on this, and every time you check, somebody has like a different like estimation of like, okay, well there were 1,000 Azov people and 500 are Nazis, or actually 10,000 Azov, but only 1,000 are Nazis. I don't know the exact bits. I know that they definitely have a pretty strong like average ideological disposition, though.
Correct on everything. I will just add a little bit, details, I guess.
Hmm.
So basically, what happened is, as you probably know, Maidan Revolution happened, and after that, we had no government, functional government. There was no like election, nothing yet done. So it was a clusterfuck, basically. After the huge revolution, we had like no government. Nothing. Our president escaped, obviously, to Russia. Former president Yanukovych, and it was a pretty dire time. And in this exact time, of course, Russia decided to invade, which is obviously like the most like hard time in the history of modern Ukraine. They attacked, and they annexed Crimea, as you know, and then they invaded further. So Donbass, the drill. And we at the time had huge problem with like traders, with pro-Russian people in very strong positions of power, like judges, institutions, army personnel, stuff like that. They were like infiltrated pretty much everything, because before Maidan they controlled pretty much everything. Like not always directly, but many Russian citizens were even in control of pretty important institutions in Ukraine. So this was a clusterfuck, and we couldn't like literally trust anyone, and we had no functional army, but we had an invasion on our hands. So in the plans were not only Donbass, but also Kharkiv, where I'm from, also Odessa, and other places. So basically, the people who ended up being the only defenders of this country were those volunteer battalions. Not only Azov, many other as well, like Aidar, many other. And they were, as you said, primarily far right people. Some of them were very us people, suspicious guys. So, like ultras, so like football fans, they were like maybe like some kind of like gym culture, alpha male dudes as well. There's a lot of people there, honestly. And reasonably, the main person who created Azov, Beletsky, was a literal Nazi. So there's like no way around that shit. So he was like basically Jews everywhere, like they control the banking,
I'm
crypto
always saying
Jews,
this.
the dance. Yeah, so basically all of that shit. White race, which was a cringe and a half in Ukraine because nobody literally talks about race here. We're like very homogenous, there's yes, obviously there are people here who are not white, but the majority of people are white, and it's not like a big conversation. People talk about ethnicity, people talk about nationality for sure, but race, it was like a topic that people like didn't even like pick up. And basically he was that. So yeah, so he is the one who created Azov, which is true, and he was a Nazi, but then he kind of fell in love with Israel, which I don't know what the fuck is that about. He kind of realized that his perfect ethno state all along was the Jewish one. And he then started to use this, by the way, to explain he's not anti-Semitic, because he's like, well, I love Israel. And I was like, what? It's like, forget Beletsky. Basically, he created Azov, and he's a Nazi, yeah. But afterwards, then many people who were also in that battalion, like Yemichev, for example, who is from Kharkiv, by the way. Like most of them are, by the way, they are from Kharkiv or Donbass. They are not Westerners, as many Russians tell you. Bandera, Western people. They are actually Russian-speaking Easterners, primarily. Kharkiv, Donbass. So as you can imagine, they would be the ones to want to defend their Donbass, where they're from, obviously, right? So it's not only they are like very aggressive people, but they also it's their home that is invaded, like entire east, pretty much, right? So most of them then they had some quarrels basically amongst each other. Some were trying to ditch Beletsky because of his idiotic anti-Semitic rhetoric and that people did not support. It's really hard to sell Nazism in Ukraine. Really hard because people like basically like hell bent on hating it because it done so much damage. So for example, in America, you didn't have like a Nazi annihilating you, right? So, but in Ukraine, so many people died, like millions of people died, and Soviet Union, of course, years of Soviet Union were primarily concentrated on hating like Nazism and on saying how great we are because we defeated Nazism, right? So it's pretty hard to sell Nazism in Ukraine in that term. But he didn't manage to do that. He was very interested in politics, not in fighting. He created his own national corps. Not corpse, whatever. Not the dead bodies. National something corpse, I think, but I can pronounce the word correctly for make it not sounding like dead
It's
bodies.
it's
So
core in
basically,
English.
oh maybe yeah.
You ignore the
Thank you.
P and the S and
So
just call it core.
yeah, so basically that's what he created. It was deeply unpopular among people, among even far right people in Ukraine. Nobody like vibed with that shit. Basically, he didn't get any seat. He get one seat in our Verkhovna Rada, which is like parliament in Ukraine. He got one seat first time and 0 seats the next elections. So not very lucky in terms, getting power. So other than that, what I was saying is that people started to defend their country and fight to prevent Russia from going any further. So pretty much the only reason why my Kharkiv and me as a person were not occupied by Russia in 2014 is them. So despite everything, I will be forever grateful for that, for obvious reason, because I don't want to be killed, raped, and imprisoned. So yeah, and I want to be a Ukrainian, as many other people want to be. So then afterwards, they were kind of like integrated in the army as a whole. So not like as volunteer entities, right? Separate battalions, right? But integrated in Ukrainian armed forces, which was a good thing because literally they started to blend in with everyone else and get de-radicalized. They separated themselves from Beletsky and his political party entirely, almost entirely, and they started to get way more new members, just people who wanted to protect their home And the only people who were fighting back in the day were these battalions. So if you wanted to protect your country, that's where you had to go. You didn't have like, a regular army, which is weird for Americans to understand, I think. But we had like zero army. And these guys were the ones who started to get more people there, like from various ethnicities. So like Jewish people, Greeks, Azerbaijani people, all sorts of people started to integrate and to become part of this, force in Azov as well. And of course, this helped with, dilute this nationalist, very far right vibe they were having. And yeah, so this is basically what happened. And at this time, pretty much Nemechev denounced, he's like the actual leader of Azov right now. He denounces like what Beletsky did. He also denounced his far right and anti-Semitic stuff. And he said that they have like a 30% of very, very far right people in Azov right now, which is his estimation. There's very much, like you said, you cannot check that shit, honestly. So how would you like, say, yeah, 30%, yeah. But that's what he says. And also we cannot jump in his head to see, are you a Nazi? But at least his rhetoric has nothing to do with that. And not a single like manifesto of theirs has anything to do with anti-Semitism or any racial shit at all. Mostly they talk about anti-imperialism, so fight against Russia, and they are very NATO skeptic and very Eurosceptic. So they don't want to be part of European Union and part of NATO. They want like independent Ukraine, and they hate like communism, Soviet Union shit, and Russia. That's like the main gist. And again, not to say that there are no Nazis there, for sure. But, the majority of them right now are not Nazis. So, here's my problem. Why did you think it's okay to wish those people dead?
Oh, sure. Well, I don't and can't really care if Nazis die, because the political consequences of them living are generally far worse than, them not making it along the way. The main concern that I have, and this has been lightened somewhat recently because Ukraine actually has a pretty resilient liberal democracy, which means that it's sturdy politically. But the concern that I have is that what you call watering down, I would call like integration and normalization. That by having people in the Azov battalion washed into the mainstream military, they get quieter, they get less overtly anti-Semitic because that stuff doesn't sell, but they still quietly try to build power within those institutions. That is, after all, what happened in Germany after the fall of the Third Reich. And it's what's happening right now in America, where they stay, more quiet, and they go like, okay, we have some legitimacy now. We can gain accreditation as heroes of Ukraine. We have sacrificed ourselves. We've laid our blood and sweat on the line to defend it against Russian invasion. And now we have some legitimate institutional power. So we have to keep quiet for a bit, but one day, we'll take back what's ours. And this happens all the time with far-right ultranationalist groups. Now, whether or not that's actually going to play out, like, obviously, I don't know. And at the moment, I don't think it will. In particular, I don't think that Euro and NATO skeptic vibes in Ukraine are going to survive the war with Russia. I think that the, pro-EU, pro-NATO sentiment is just too strong. I think that Ukraine has a bright
Mm-hmm.
future ahead of it, and I don't think any effort to subvert that with some kind of weird, isolatory ultranationalism would work. But I do think efforts are being made. There are a lot of photos of Ukrainian soldiers who have like weird Nazi memorabilia patches on their shoulders and stuff. And a lot of Western leftists, they see this and they misinterpret it. They think, oh, look at this, they're all Nazis. That's not true. In reality, it's a small group of Nazis in the military making an effort to be in front of every camera shot because they want to front themselves. It's the same reason why a lot of U.S. Military officials over in Iraq and Afghanistan were very keen on promoting like Western Christianity in the photo ops that they would do over there because they want to overemphasize the presence they have in the in the occupation. They want to overemphasize their involvement. In truth, like, edgy statements aside, if you're like a Nazi in the Azov battalion, like a proper Nazi, I mean, like ideologically, I think the best thing that you can do is obviously the best thing, like the best thing you could do is fight, win, and be de-radicalized. I'm big on that narrative. If I wasn't, I wouldn't have so many former alt-righters in my community. But if you're not going to be de-radicalized, we just if we can magically assume that you're going to stay a Nazi your whole life or whatever, I think the best thing you can do for your country is to fight and die defending it against Russia. That way, you defend against Russia and you rid Ukraine of your subversive and destructive political ideology. I mean, a great many of them did that down in Mariupol, so it seems they're taking that advice to heart anyway. I know that in reality, people always have the ability to change, but also in reality, oftentimes they don't. And there are really bad consequences to the valorization of far-right ultra-nationalist military brigades, in the context of making them national heroes. We saw what that did with Bandera, after all. I mean, he was a Nazi collaborator and hailed as a hero of Ukraine because the ultra-nationalist element was seen as like a
Not because he was a Nazi,
no, no,
because
no.
he was fighting against Soviet Union and Nazis,
Exactly. But he
actually.
was a Nazi collaborator until they rejected him.
At a, at,
And,
a, at a point, yes,
yeah, but that's the thing, right?
for sure.
Being an ultra nationalist means that you get to be a hero in spite of having done that. And that's my concern.
Yes,
Yeah, and that's
I
what I worry
understand.
about. It
Three
it, it
things.
whitewashes.
Three things. First thing, you said that you don't mind and cannot mind like Nazis dying. You think it's like a good thing, essentially. But you yourself admitted that that you don't know if the most of the Azov battalion are Nazis. So when you did not wrote Nazis in Azov should put guns in their mouths and kill themselves. You did not say dox the locations of Nazis in Azov battalion. You said just Azov battalion. And most of people there are not Nazis. That's the first thing. So I really don't get how it explains why it's okay to say that, because
Well,
I understand wishing Nazis to die. But you said yourself, you don't know. Are they Nazis? Are they not? You don't know.
it would be
And
like
that's one thing.
oh, I just want to say it would be like me saying I don't really care about like Wehrmacht losses in the siege of Stalingrad. The majority of the Wehrmacht weren't like committed ideological Nazis. A lot of them were just
Are we
dipshit German
really? Are we
recruits.
really doing that? Are we really comparing those people to Wehrmacht?
Well,
Those
wait.
people who literally defend their homeland, did not hurt a fucking anyone, did not do any anti-Jewish pogroms, did not commit any crimes, did not have this rhetoric published anywhere. Do we are we like truly comparing this? This
I'm
is,
only
you think, a good comparison?
I'm only talking about Nazi affiliated or associated military groups in which not every member is an actual Nazi. In the Wehrmacht, there
Okay,
were
but
tons of people, even towards the end, like post Battle of the Bulge, when the Germans were fighting in Germany. Um, the majority of the people who were recruited to the Wehrmacht by that point were like 15-year-old boys. I mean, they were hardly like the like SS members, hardly like
I'm sorry,
ideological warriors
recruited.
of
They were
Nazism.
recruited in a Nazi army in a country that attacked other people, that committed genocides. You cannot possibly compare people who went to defend their homeland to this. It's
Well,
just,
I
it
think it would
doesn't
depend.
work.
It would depend on their reasoning. In terms of like the
Reasoning was defend my homeland from Russia. That's the reasoning.
yes, but it
It's
really
not a bad
depends
one.
on why they're doing it as well. And this is why I worry about ultra nationalism being a kind of whitewashing force for like far right neo Nazism. Right? You can want to defend your homeland for very wrong reasons. It's true that the Azov battalion is fighting a defensive war, and the Wehrmacht was most certainly not. But in terms of like the moral character of the people in those armies, in the SS, pretty much everyone was a Nazi. There's no getting around that. But in the Wehrmacht,
Yes.
the reasons people would have joined up or been recruited would vary enormously. To give you another example of this like principle in action, I don't think the majority of the people who are invading Ukraine, like Russian soldiers, are ideologically anti-Ukraine. I mean, a lot of them are conscripts, and a lot of them are just, you
And
know,
a lot of them are, but not all, for sure.
I'm sure a lot of them are, but hardly all of
Mm.
them. But for the same reason, when I see Russian soldiers killed in Ukraine, I know a lot of those people are probably good people who are just by sociological circumstance thrown into situations in which they are playing the bad guy, but they are still the invaders. And for that reason, I
Again,
can't.
there are invaders. There are invaders. We are not, and we never have been.
Yes, but in that instance, we're just talking about like whether or not every member of
I
that group
understand.
is an adherent to an ideology or belief system that I think is harmful, even if there was a
But you
purely
you don't
defensive
know.
conflict.
Sure, but you don't know the reasoning. You don't know who these people are. You yourself said that you don't know if there are Nazis, and I'm pretty sure that at least half of them, if not more, are not. So I explained to you the situation already, and yeah. So this is my issue. I don't think it's a good way to do it. I don't think I again respect you. This is nothing like I'm not like trying to paint you as like a awful person for saying that. I'm just trying to explain that to me it's very brutal to say something like that to people who are, first of all, defenders of this country, and second of all, are not Nazis. Not all of them, not even the half of them.
Okay,
So if they were like actively committing like some shit against Jews, if they were like, even if they were talking about it, that's another conversation, but
okay.
they don't.
To use
So,
a specifically defensive context, then, to be a little bit more broad, only using like the defensive force involved, I also would not care that much about the death of Polish ultranationalists during the invasion from Nazi Germany in '39, or right wing ultranationalist Brits who were killed in the Blitz by the Luftwaffe. Um, in large part because even if they're on the defensive side of things, we're talking about people with fundamentally genocidal ideologies, or like yeah, like the Ku Klux Klan or something, or ultra far right, or like there were divisions of U.S. Pacific military brigades who fought against the Japanese, horribly racist, who went out there and combated them, and I don't really care about their losses either, you know. Whether or not every single member of these groups is like ultra far right aligned or whatever, as a general association, like the point that I'm making is that a war which at its end sees the fewest number of far right people alive is one which, you know, ensures the greatest likelihood of peace at the end.
so
Obviously,
for
the
you,
greatest priority is Ukraine winning, but that's why I think that the Azov battalion should be allowed to fight, and I've encouraged that.
the general association with a far right ideology is enough to condemn people to die.
Well, I'm not actually condemning people to die. I'm making a sort of errant statement on group affiliation, which I would in many other cases. I've made jokes about 9/11. I don't think it's out of line.
I
At
see.
at least in this case, we're talking about people who have the potential to do real harm
But how do we know that? I
because they're
mean, they have
part of the
zero
Azov
power.
battalion.
They are not glorified because they are, some of them are anti-Semitic. They are glorified because they literally spilled blood for me to sit here.
Like Bandera.
That's why they're glorified.
They're glorified
Yes.
for being ultranationalists as a way of
Well, to
covering up
be
their
quite
far right
fair,
views.
Bandera is pretty controversial figure because unlike Azov, he actually did kill Jews. So, he's way worse in that sense because he's literally on but did commit crimes against Jews and Poles as well.
Do you think the
So,
Azov
yes,
would if
so
they had the ability?
no,
Why not? It was
definitely
started
not.
by a Nazi.
Because it's not a Nazi battalion anymore. They don't spread that the word. Most of them are just regular people who I personally know, by the way, and who are
Okay.
not Nazis, who are not anti-Semitic in any way, a shape or form. And this is not the vibe. This is not would be if they did. If I knew that one of them actually were incredibly anti-Semitic and committed some kind of crime against a Jew, they should be prosecuted. Fuck that motherfucker. We do not stand for this here.
No, I get
And
that. I'm not
yeah,
I'm
but we
not
don't know
impugning
that.
you here. But the
Yeah,
Azov Battalion was a militia group founded by Nazis who
eight
ideologically,
years ago,
yes,
they
and
there's
their
been a big change
their
there.
founding has had an influence on the ideological
Definitely.
predispositions of the group. Do you
No,
think
no, no.
it's
Wait, not an influence. The founder was a Nazi. Let's put it plainly. I'm not just trying to, sugarcoat it. The founder was straight up a Nazi, but it does not. A lot of them are no longer affiliated with them. People like Nemechev are no longer affiliated with that. With Beletsky as well, they condemned him. They denied any connection with him. And I have no reason to doubt it at this point because they have not. There are no credible organization aside from Russian fakes that truly found them committing any crimes against Jewish people in
okay?
the occupied areas.
But what
And
you're saying right here, again, this is the thing. I'm not talking about whether or not they've committed crimes against the Jewish people. I'm talking about whether or not it's possible that ideologically they would have did exactly what Bandera had done if the socioeconomic
No,
circumstances were permissive. Right now, we don't live
not
in a
now.
world where the people in Ukraine can just up and, facilitate a Holocaust. That's just not a thing that can
Mhm.
happen right now. But I think that if you went back 80 years, a lot of the people, if taken from now to then in the Azov battalion, would have been collaborators. Certainly, they're ideologically in line with that. The only difference between now and then is that now they're being given a pretext for ultranationalism and national self-defense without it being directly framed through Nazi collaboration. And that's good, but the
There's
ideology is still there.
there's nothing in them in their like ideology. They are battalion. I'm not talking about a political party. Those are two different things. They are not anywhere there. You can see phrases like Ukraine for white Ukrainians. It's not in their text. It's not something they talk about at all. In
Well,
fact,
yeah,
I have not
that's smart of them,
sorry.
right? But the fact that they're not a
So
political
I see.
party,
So
if they're still a
you're
militia,
incapable of believing that they are true about that. You think they are just hiding their power level, basically, is what you
oh,
think.
yeah, I'm sure there are plenty of people in the Azov Battalion who do that. That makes sense for a far right group to do, and they've been doing that all around the world. Again, what we've seen right now in Germany after the fall of the Third Reich, not every Nazi was persecuted, of course. A lot of them have sown seeds in the police and military defense, and right now there are a bunch of like neo-Nazi militias in the like hills of Germany, because the only 3 generations ago, a lot of those people's ancestors would have themselves been members of the Nazi Party. They keep quiet. They talk about dog whistles. They talk about German sovereignty and they talk about
I
immigration.
understand
And
what you mean.
eventually they have
Yeah, I
the
understand.
right. Well, we see this in America too. I don't. Well, I agree
They're
that.
nothing like that.
Well, I agree that not
I'm
every
sorry.
person in the Azov battalion is like a card carrying neo Nazi. I definitely think there's a predisposition ideologically to the group.
Yeah, but again, I did not address this point. It was the initial points you made when after I finished talking. One of them was that you are like kind of afraid that they will be, get some power, something like that. They have like zero power even before Russian invasion. The political party had 0 seats, zero. Nobody voted for those fuckers, like Beletsky and his party. I mean, in the beginning and in the second election, in both elections. So they have zero influence. Nobody supports that shit. Like literally, very few people. And what kind of power can they have? People do not praise any of that. People only praise defenders of Azovstal, for example, who, by the way, you wished to die. Those people as
If they're Nazis,
heroes.
sure.
You didn't say that. You said just Azov battalion.
Well,
So for
yeah,
them,
like
you made
like
this
I like I
generalization that they're all Nazis.
the same way I would say I don't care if people died in the Wehrmacht, but then if you ask me like, so what if there was a person in the Wehrmacht who actually
Again,
wasn't wait,
Wehrmacht.
wait, wait. This is a valid comparison. If I said I don't care if people die in the Wehrmacht and you're like, "Okay, what if someone was in the Wehrmacht but they were recruited, they're not an ideological Nazi and also they won a
It's
defect." And I'm like,
it's
"Okay, well
not.
that
It's not a
person
good comparison.
I am only okay, fine. Let's use a different comparison. In the United States Civil War, the North invaded the South, but the North were on the defending team. The South started the war at Fort Sumter.
Yeah, no.
Right.
Hmm.
So there were groups of Northerners who were led by generals who were like fully pro-slavery. There were military divisions from the North that were like not ideologically in disagreement at all with the South. The only reason they were invading the South was for like national unification. They wanted to stomp the
Mm,
Southern traders, but they weren't like anti-slavery. They were just on the other
mm.
team. Now, if I said, let's say there was like a battalion of them called like, I don't know, like Fuckers Battalion, Pickles Battalion, right? Pickle. Let's go with Pickle.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
Pickles Battalion. And Pickles Battalion, they're doing good work, okay? They're shooting Confederates. I love it when they do that. But these people ideologically are pro-slavery. After the Civil War, they are going to fight to keep slavery in the South and push for it in Western expansion. If the people in Pickles Battalion died while fighting, I really wouldn't give a damn. even if not every soldier in that group was ideologically pro-slavery, and I can get specific if we're talking specifics, like, okay, well, maybe that person just signed up because of this reason or that reason. But I think it would be okay for me to say broadly, like, yeah, I don't really care if they lose this battle, because at the end of the day, they're only on the right side because they happen to be born there. They aren't ideologically in the right. And the Azov battalion also is not ideologically in the right. They defend Ukraine because they're in Ukraine. But ideologically, a lot of those people are
I see.
advocates of
I
politics
understand.
worse than what Russia advocates for.
I understand. You think?
Not all of them,
So
of
yeah, so
course, but a lot of them.
deeply disagree with everything you just said, because not because it's a bad comparison, this one is better, but I know where we disagree actually. It's not the I don't disagree with what you're saying. I would agree with it 100% actually if they were actually ideologically propagating awful things, and most of them are not, and they have zero power. So yeah, so this is why we disagree, because you see them as this like originally evil force, basically. Sorry for using this colorful language, but basically, like this, the force that is potentially will, bring some very evil stuff. But I just don't think it is. It's not like that. Most of them are just regular people from Kharkiv, from Donbass, who are
That's
not
that's the
Nazis.
case for all
And then,
armies.
not really. I
Yeah,
mean, in a sense, we
all
wouldn't
armies
call
are
it like
composed
that, right?
mostly of
Wehrmacht.
normal people.
Azov is not the entire army. You know that. I'm not going even to address that. It's like
But
1,000
all
people.
battalions are
You guys know
composed
that.
mostly of normal people, right? Like, literally any army, any force
Yes,
from
but
the
what I'm
Mongol
trying to
hordes
say
and
is that it is not their ideological drive anymore. It's not. They're not there to. There's just no point in that in Ukraine at whatsoever. Let me tell you a little bit of a story, just to address why it's so. I guess I cannot breach this. Maybe I don't have like the words for it, and I will tell you. I understand what you mean. I just understand that we are seeing things differently in that sense, because I don't see them as this threat as you do. I
Mhm.
don't see them as this, ideologically evil force that has some good people in it by chance. I don't see them like that. So this is why I guess we disagree, because the examples you bring, I would actually agree with. I just don't see Azov as those examples, and this is why basically. So here's the thing. I told this story, I think, to Not So Erudite. I think you know her. I think you talked with her, Kyla. And the story basically is about my friend who I met him when I was in the university, and he initially escaped from Russian invasion in 2014. He was from Mariupol, and he basically what happened is he and other people, most of my friends are from Donbass for some reason. I don't know why it happened in the university. Basically, they all moved to other cities in Ukraine, right? To not be occupied by Russia and not to be part of this Donetsk People's Republic shit. You know probably about it. So they moved to Kharkiv, to Kiev, to other cities basically. So let's call him Stas. He moved as well. So he moved to Kharkiv. But then he just couldn't deal with this shit, and he told us, me and my best friend who is now fighting, that he will be enlisting to defend his home. He cannot let Russians take it, and he just cannot allow it. He wants to defend his home, his loved ones, and Mariupol was, as you probably know, back in the day, indeed defended. So they did not let Russians take it, basically. And he then, oh, sorry, my computer is about to die. Fuck. No, 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 no. Don't do that. I'm in it. So he enlisted in Azov, which was the only battalion at the time that defended, east, and also a lot of them were from Mariupol, and he wanted to defend his hometown first and foremost. And since then, for 8 years, he has been fighting in the battalion and fighting for Ukraine. And then when this phase of war began in February, he was the one who also, they had amazing experience in fighting. They were like one of the best soldiers at that point. So they were sent to the toughest places, like Mariupol, which you probably know. I think you heard, right? You talked about it, I think, about Azovstal.
yes.
And yeah, so he was there. And yeah, and we lost connection with him. And basically, the last thing he said was that he's going to probably kill himself because, sorry, a bit emotional. So he apologized. So he basically said he was going to kill himself because he doesn't want to be taken by Russians. He knows what they do. He knows what they do to, especially Azov prisoners. As you can imagine, probably they were like, their image in Russia is very inflated in this, like, this boogeyman, Nazi stuff. And they are like, many Russians show Azov soldiers, captured ones, as an example. They like torture them, do horrendous shit with them, honestly, like genitalia mutilation, like they look like concentration camp victims. When the ones we got back. So he knew that his comrades were taken, and he said that he is very injured, and he participated in taking more than thousands of people out, civilians, out of Azov-style building. So he saved thousands of lives, this person, and he then decided to basically shoot himself. Yeah, I don't know honestly if he did. Maybe he got taken, but this was basically the moment when I saw you saying that they should put guns in their mouths and shoot themselves. So yeah, sorry. Fuck, I don't know, I'm crying, stupid. So basically, yeah, I'm sorry for the emotions, but this is something I want you to consider. The man was Jewish Greek, not a Nazi. A lot of them in Mariupol, by the way, Jewish Greeks for some reason. So yeah, this is the man. Um, you basically wish to kill himself, and I think he took your advice. So yeah, that's the story. And this is a regular person in Azov. He was never anti-Semitic. He was a Jewish person, religiously Jewish, by the way, ethnically Jewish. He was incredibly kind, and yeah, very actually kind of liberal in terms of like Ukraine. So very like even pro-LGBT, feminist. Not feminist. He didn't call himself that, but he was like pro women. It's cringe here for people, men especially, to call themselves feminists. So they would never say it, but he was like very pro women, pro choice. Decent person in all accounts. So this is a regular person in Azov, my friend who went to defend their homeland. But you, for some reason, and many other people are hell bent on thinking all of them are Nazis just because the original creation was done by a Nazi. So yeah, sorry
I'm
about the
very
emotion,
sorry
but that's
that has happened.
yeah.
You don't need to apologize for crying. It's a perfectly reasonable thing to get emotional over. I do take issue with your framing. You didn't take my advice. You never heard what I had to say. I want to be clear because I feel like we have to apply a non-selective standard for the way in which we talk about stuff like this. There are
Mhm.
good people in every fighting force that has ever existed in humanity. If you were able to sort through all of them, you could probably find some morally good SS members, like people who are secretly waiting for the regime to fall or whatever. I mean, literally anything, like even the most morally heinous. When you make broad denunciations of literally any fighting force, invariably you're going to be wrapping, not just fighting force, groups of people. You're going to be wrapping in people who are undeserving of poor consideration. If you are talking about, like, I've talked about the Saudi royal family, I have talked about the military of North Korea, I've talked about the Russian military, I've talked about so many different groups with broad denunciations. I speak in historical terms. Which groups do I want to
Mm.
see survive after all of this is done? The answer is going to be obvious every time. I don't want any far right group to survive because those are the people that create the conflicts that end up killing more people down the line. Obviously, if you take a look at any historical conflict in World War II, who do I want coming out on the other side? Well, in the grand scheme of things, obviously, the people who won't do a second Holocaust. I mean, that seems reasonable. With regards to the Azov battalion, I want to be clear. This gets caught up in a lot of like anti-Ukrainian narrativizing that I have
Yes, true.
never bought into. Um,
Mhm.
are there Nazis in the Ukrainian military? Yes. Are there in the American military?
Mhm.
Yes. Are there in the Russian government? Yes. They are everywhere. Unfortunately,
Sad,
it's
but true.
it's a popular
Yeah.
ideology, and I have never bought into the idea that the existence of Azov, no matter its prominence in some forms of media or how often they flash their black suns at the cameras when they're given the opportunity, represents some kind of innately far right tendency in the Ukrainian military. The Ukrainian military and people, as far as I can tell, are more liberal leaning than the US in a lot of ways. They might end
Okay.
up being one of the strongest bastions of liberal democracy in the West after what's going on right now in the US and Western Europe. The reason I'm saying all of this is because I want to put like properly into context the things that I have said. Um, you talk about whether or not a broad statement about military fighting forces is made valid based on whether they're on the defense or attacking, whether they're legitimate or illegitimate in their broader course. And I understand that. I want the Azov battalion to contribute to a victory against Russia, after all. But in the long term, in the
I
grand
want them to die in the process.
in the grand scheme of things, a world with fewer Nazis, however many of them there were before and are now, is a world more likely to have fewer people die needlessly in the future. As far as I'm concerned, the only reason the Russian invasion is happening is because of the Nazi-ish tendencies in the Kremlin. It's a recurring problem.
I would call them fascist more. Like Nazis is not there. Like
They
they're not
they
very like
lean in.
anti-Semitic. Yeah,
They
Lenin for sure. Like Russia, fascist for sure. Yes,
they
but
lean
yeah,
in,
they're not.
yeah.
It's a bit hard to lean in because, like I said, their whole identity is built on winning against Nazis. You know, so it's really hard in Russia again, like in Ukraine, to
Well,
sell Nazism
we see a lot of that
because
here
yeah.
too, because there are a lot of like pro-Russia, like tanky types, who are ideologically fully
Mm.
in line with Nazis. Like literally, they won't say Jews, they'll say Soros, but apart from that, they'll
Yeah,
basically
I
like
know that's up. Yeah.
yeah, this recurring issue, you know, and I would say the same in literally any other conflict. For instance, the U.S. invasion of Iraq, right, or in Afghanistan, right? We were the invaders in Afghanistan, but generally speaking, the Taliban were far, far worse than we are. Like in terms of
Hmm.
moral
Yeah.
disposition and political prescriptions, we may have invaded Afghanistan, but the Taliban are way worse in terms of what they want to do with Afghanistan relative to us, and we can see that now in our
Yes. Yes.
absence what they have done. The point that I'm
Hmm.
trying to get at is that in all of these conflicts, all of these sides, whether we're talking winner, loser, invader, defender, so on and so forth, I have made many sweeping claims about which groups I want to win, which sides I want to see take prominence, which groups I think are more or less harmful, more or less deserving of death. But these ascriptions don't survive individual scrutiny. None of these are meant to be denunciations of any individuals because I don't know those individuals. Every person who, from a distance, is a member of some Nazi militia might interpersonally be like having doubts, or they might be totally in disagreement ideologically with the people around them, but are going along with it because they really want to defend their country, or so on and so forth. This is the case in all these groups. I often engage in pretty like flippant language, and I think that for the
Hmm.
most part, this is like a fine thing to do. I don't mind doing that, but I want to make it clear whether I'm being inconsistent here or not with how flippant I was with talking about the Azov battalion
Hmm.
people. The proper meaning of my statements, when given the highest level of scrutiny, are that I want even the Nazis in the Azov battalion, even the people who ideologically I would condemn, like right across the line, I want them to contribute to a successful defense of Russia. As long as they are Nazis, for those who actually are, their ideology is one of genocide and they would have me dead. And so I cannot mourn their death. If I speak in groups,
Yes.
any groups, people who are not Nazis will be caught into this. Um, but
Sorry, do I would like to say I think I maybe gave a wrong impression to people, which people hate you a lot. So I would like to correct it for people not thinking that I'm doing that. I don't think you like bought in that all Ukrainians are Nazis. I'm perfectly aware. It's not even the point to talk about it because I've seen what you know what you say about it, on what your community says about it.
all
So yeah,
Americans
I
are Nazis.
also uh, I also, yeah, I also did not mean like that you literally at fault for that person, my friend dying. Obviously not. He did not see you say that, and yeah, and it's yeah, it's nothing like that. I just meant to imply that you have to maybe like consider like the language and what the I guess the meaning of words, I guess, in that sense, because what you said is not why he possibly is dead or captured. Of course not. But yeah, but the this flippant, I guess, disregard for their lives is what bothers me. I guess it's a good way to put it. Not from you even specifically, but from many people. And
Even the
yeah,
actual
and I don't
Nazis?
think. Um, well, I guess so. I don't think they deserve death. They don't have like the the power right now and they won't have it and here afterwards as well. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that most people talk about it in the way that they hate Nazism, they hate fascism, they call Russian fascists here in Ukraine all the time, like Ukrainians do, right? So this is not something, I don't think they want that to be. Most of them are in any way will try to or want to create any like far nationalist waves here or Nazi waves, and they don't have the power for it. So I'm not worried about it. If they did,
Sure, we
if we
thought
had
that over
a
here as
British
well, though, is the issue, right? I mean, it's
over here, where
ideologically, a Nazi would be committed to my death. Like it's not even a conditional thing. By virtue of my blood, I would be on the chopping block for them. And for that reason,
why is that? Are you a Jew actually or something?
they would
I'm
I've
confused.
certainly been called one by them. No, I
I've been too as well. The
right.
nose. Yeah,
They do like
yeah.
that. No, it would be, I assume, from my homosexual tendencies.
Oh, I'm not straight as well, so
Well, then there
they
we go.
I then not I'm not the biggest fan of these guys, as you can probably imagine. They're not the biggest fans of me.
For
But
me,
yeah,
it's not a matter of immediate harm. It's really difficult to know in the long term how harmful the presence of like valorized ultranationalist far right militias will be in a country. Historically, that doesn't tend
yeah,
to go down very well when it comes to the acceptance of the ideologies that come with it. I can say right now that we're seeing a resurgence of fascism all across the West in
yes, that's
but
true.
in
Hmm.
ideologies that we thought were dead and buried. For me, it's like, it's like you read like a local op or like a news story about somebody who slipped on some ice on the stairs and died, and you're like, oh, that fucking sucks. And then you read down, they're like, oh yeah, so and so was a renowned local neo-Nazi seen at this event with an armband, Sieg Heiling, and you're like, oh, okay, well, I don't really care anymore. It's not,
I
I'm not
understand.
advocating for like their arrest and execution. I do believe in freedom of speech. It's just like,
Hmm.
as long as, it's just it's a matter of like where my sympathies are at. It's like, person dies, comma, that person wanted you dead anyway, and it's like, well, okay, fuck them then, I
So
guess.
I agree with that. It's not my problem with what you said, honestly. If I like saw a pic of some Azov guy who died, like who were killed, I don't know, like for example, with a bullet or something. And I like for sure was no, I knew that he was like a Nazi who like bashed Jews on the streets, and gays, and maybe maybe be on one of those how do you call them, rainbow things I went to in Kharkiv. It's like pride, like pride stuff, and we were hit by people, and it wasn't good, and most of
Huh.
it was those people. And so yeah, maybe those, if I see that picture of that person dead, and I am for sure aware of what he was like as a person, be that heartbroken, like just like you. I'll be like, oh well,
It's like, yeah, I like,
yeah,
you could
I
have done a better
yeah,
job living.
yeah, I agree. I agree. This is what I think I'm like bad at expressing what I mean. It's not that I disagree with what you said. I wouldn't be, of course, like that upset as I would for like a person who is not a fucking Nazi, for example, right? And but this is not, the thing is that you don't know if they are. In this case, I know they are this person, like a hypothetical person that like that was killed, and I know he like bashed my head when I was on Pride in Kharkiv, for example. This person, yeah, not a big fan. But I will implore people to maybe read up less biased, less Russian information about Azov, which you can find some nasty stuff about them for sure, especially Beletsky. Fuck that clown. But
Well, we can't really know, because the thing is, like, there's an
that's
association,
my point.
right? Like
We
the
can't.
logo.
Association is not enough for me. Is
Well,
not
it's
enough
but
for
it's
me.
not just association. It's like founded by a Nazi, and you keep seeing Nazi imagery crop up in the people who are part of the battalion. There's no way to do a poll, and also Nazis lie all the time when polled on stuff like this. They
It's
have
true.
to.
Yeah.
So I can't know and you can't know. I guess like I'm trying to think of how I could best, if I was being like perfectly careful with my language, then I would have said, if you're a Nazi in the Azov battalion, like like, I don't care if you die or whatever. Um, you know, but for me it really depends on, like, I guess the critical Nazi percentage, where it's like, I don't know, like, to go by the highest example, how many of the Wehrmacht were Nazis at the beginning of the war? Like, what, maybe, I don't know, 90, 80? And then how many are the Azov are? 20?
So
30? I don't
30.
actually know.
People mostly say 30,
How
which is
much is
like
the
the most.
American military? I don't even know.
How the fuck knows? I don't know. That's the way I don't like
10?
playing numbers game, because I agree with you 100% that you cannot like really tell how the fuck will you tell. And yeah, but just I guess that just my concern is flippant disregard for people's life who are not Nazis in that battalion first and foremost, and quite a lot of them are not. Like my friend who was a Jew, a Jewish man, definitely not a Nazi. And
I've talked to Jewish Nazis. I'm kidding. I'm not saying
holy
your friend.
shit, they exist.
Look, it's the internet. Lots of people out here. Look, in all
Yeah, you
seriousness, I
know,
yeah, I want to be clear. You know, the callous disregard that I have for people's well-being here is really reserved for the people who want to do the Holocaust 2.0. If you're in the Azov battalion and you're not a Nazi, and I imagine that's the case for the majority of the people there, because it would be pretty
yeah,
difficult to
exactly.
maintain ideological purity in a militia that has been incorporated into the actual military. I don't know how they would discern their recruitment. Like, oh, you're a Nazi, well, you're
Yeah,
joining up with us. That'd be pretty tough to do. If you're not, and you're a member of that group, difficult association optically, but fuck it. If you're not a Nazi, then God be with you. It's not a group denunciation applied to the individual. It's a group denunciation of the group. Of course, if you're a Nazi in
I
the Azov
understand.
battalion, then if I, then
I mean,
stop wanting to do a Holocaust, please. Uh,
I guess my the biggest thing is the like I said, the disregard, and also it's not the policing of even of your language. It's just I understand you're an edgy boy and you like edgy jokes. It's not that like that big of a deal to me. It's just that the concept itself, I guess, that you maybe it's because you like think there's like a very potential strong threat with them, which I don't see and I don't think is the problem. And yeah, maybe that's the reason. Maybe you think that if they gain like prominence and power, and it will be in the future potentially damaging
I
to
do
maybe
worry
LGBT people,
a little.
maybe.
I worry a
Yeah,
little, yeah, because
yeah,
you're all
yeah.
set up to be, because like here's the thing, right? Um, I think oftentimes national politics are defined oppositionally. America was pretty okay with Hitler before World War II began, right? Like it was
Hmm.
opposition to Nazism that stigmatized eugenics research in America. Having the Nazis as an
Hmm.
enemy made America more left leaning. And right now, having Russia as an enemy is making you guys more left leaning as a country. The far right
For
elements
sure.
of Ukraine were predominantly like Russia sympathetic Easterners. Kiev has always been more progressive than the Donbass. And over the past
Yeah,
decade or so, Ukraine as a whole has moved left because you see what far right politics looks like. It looks like Russia. You don't want that. And that's great. And
yeah.
you guys might end up being the most left leaning country in Europe by the time this is all done, depending on what happens in the West. And I just worry about this like ultra valorized, like, hey, we defended you guys against Russia, so everything we do and say is in line with the Ukrainian national interest kind of nationalism that was.
I think
I
you
worry. I
consider
worry.
us I understand that, but I think you consider us a little bit more retarded than we are, which
No,
is
no, no. No, no, no. Listen,
understandable.
we're retarded. That's why. I wouldn't have
Oh,
thought this 5 years ago. The problem is we're retarded,
oh,
and I know for a fact that you guys are the same species as us. That's my fucking issue.
true.
We're on the way down. We're sinking right now. I'm very worried. That
I
really. No,
see,
that's
understand.
it. I don't think it'll happen. I don't think it's like a 51% chance or whatever. I just worry. I just worry a little.
Which is, by the way, kind of funny when people talk about like Azov and shit all the time, which kind of bad that we ended up talking about it. It's not that big of an issue, to be honest,
It's
in
really
terms of
not.
it
And
was
I am really
yeah,
sorry about
but
your friend, and I don't mind you talking about this with me at all, by the way. I don't want you to think as though this is some like
thank you. I
edge.
appreciate it.
No, yeah, okay.
Yeah. It's fine. I like I said, I would like to. I do appreciate everything you like did, in terms of Ukraine, and I definitely don't think you're like a bad person because you said that. I just think what you said was wrong, but that's fine. I think I can think that and still, appreciate and respect people who I disagree with and who I think did something bad. It's something people on the internet, especially in the West, should learn. I think this skill to be, cordial and to respect people who you deeply disagree with. To me, it's a bit different, of course, because these guys, despite the fact that they might not want me at their table, you know, considering my like beliefs and my, opinions, but they in 2014 defended me. from dying, and they continue to do it, which is something that earns them respect in my eyes, for sure.
Well,
And if they
hopefully years and years of conflict with the far right, like Russian government, will push them away from the worst elements of their ideology for
yes,
those that
and it
still
did, and
believe.
it already did. Yeah, and a lot of them already did. I do believe people can change, by the way.
No, I do as
Yeah,
well.
yes, that's why I don't advocate for, you know, shooting missiles in Belgrade somewhere in Russia. I do believe even like brainwashed people as Russians are, and despite the grief they brought, unimaginable grief to this country, I still believe they potentially can, get away from this fascist vibe they're on right now. So yeah, so I do believe it, and if I believe that of them, I believe that of many other people as well. And I would, if you mind, if you don't mind, please show this thing. I'm so pissed off that people was always saying that this is like Azov emblema, basically, like how to say it in English, like their symbol, basically.
Oh yeah.
And this is not a fucking Volksangel. I'm so tired of it. This is an N crossed by an I, national idea. It's another picture you have is how actually Wolfsangel looks, which is a Nazi, a wolf's hook Nazi shit.
Is this not a
It can
black sun?
No, it's not, and it pisses me off that you said it. But
Does it?
people,
It sure
yeah,
looks like one. I mean,
it looks like it.
it
Bad idea to
sure
use that for
it
sure.
sure looks like
Yeah,
a German Nordic rune in front of a black sun. Like the
yeah,
hypothetically.
but it's not.
Okay,
Yeah, but
it's
it's not.
legally distinct, copyright
Yeah,
distinct.
yep. So yeah, I mean, you can assume that they like were vibing with this shit and made it look like that, but it's an N crossed by an I. But again, you can say it's the sea is Azov Sea, as you probably like maybe know. It's actually water, and the sun is for that. But it does look kind of like that. I give you
A
that.
little
Bad PR for sure.
slight resemblance,
Yeah,
I'd say, to the Nordic rune
but
of the
you
black sun.
yeah, yeah, but you can see how in the picture, if you can see it, are these movements neo-Nazi? This picture I showed you, they show it that how actual Wolfsangel looks like. So how the wolf's hook looks like, and it actually looks way more like a Russian Z symbol. Wouldn't you say? So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's got a
uh,
few associations, got a few connotations.
yeah, true.
I'm
Yeah, strange, but
well,
right.
we'll
I
see how
know.
things pan out.
Yeah,
Again, the really though, like when you said it's not a big deal, I do genuinely believe that.
yeah,
The
I know that.
because like the thing is here, like the Azov battalion is quite small relative to the total size of the Ukrainian military, and the thing is that right
Yeah,
now
less than 1%.
the symbol of American fascism is literally like Christian nationalism. The symbols of
Yeah,
which have been ubiquitized at almost every level of American society, which means that it's essentially just a larger dog whistle. I don't know. We all have to be careful about this stuff. This Nazi shit can really
for
sneak up on
sure.
you.
Uh, I will say that I will give you like something for sure is that people have give the Russians made this such a strong tool against Ukraine, calling us Nazis, So this is like denazification is the goal. They allegedly, invaded, or they're trying to save us or some shit, liberators. They're always the heroes, these fascists in their story. So basically what happened is it's such a I guess such a allergic reaction to many Ukrainians to that, I must say. So if you like talk shit about like Azov, talk shit about honestly anything, some people will like just have this knee-jerk reaction to it because they associate this rhetoric with Russian propaganda, which I think is understandable but can be bad. You need to engage with that, I think. So I saw people trying to say that Beletsky is not a Nazi actually, which is not true. He's, which I guess is what you're worrying about to try to I think what you mean is like that their like heroic acts in defending our country will allow them to, pass some that of that Nazi shit, like
Yeah,
to
well, Nazi
slip it in. Yeah,
fascism is basically always initially framed as like a necessary defense of the nation, given form.
it is in this case, right?
Well,
Unlike Russia.
I mean, I think you can defend against Russia without doing the Azov Nazi shit. But like,
Definitely,
there's
yes.
nothing about the ideology of fascism that makes a country more able to defend itself. I just think that's the pretext given for like the rise of that ideology, because people get scared and they run to far right ultranationalists. I think right now Ukraine is actually unique in being one of the rare examples where, in a time of actual existential threat, the country rallied around internationalism and liberal democracy
Yes,
rather than like an ultra
definitely. Yes.
strongman. And
Mhm.
that actually is unique, because usually it goes the other way.
Yeah, you wouldn't find a soldier. I talked to many of them, as you probably know, as a volunteer, you know. So most of them, pretty much none of them, will say they're fighting for Zelensky or some shit. It sounds like ridiculous to Ukrainians. You would never hear a person saying, "Yeah, I'm fighting for like my strong leader Zelensky." You know, it just doesn't happen, which is, I think, good in a way, because people mostly will say, "I fight to defend my home. I fight to defend my country, the people I love." They would not say that they are fighting for some like big political like no nobody. Also, you know, many people who are fighting are not like ethnic Ukrainian. Nobody cares. So, you know, there's that. And overall, the rhetoric such as far right is very rare here right now, which I
Uh,
appreciate,
we'll see how
obviously.
it goes, I guess.
Uh,
I
yeah,
I
but
hope that
I
pattern
understand.
continues.
Yeah, I understand like the concern, but understand mine as well, I guess. Yeah, that's probably it. Anyway, we ended up talking about Azov.
Yeah,
Cringe.
well, we
You
yeah
know,
we and we talked
less
about
than
Naruto as
1%.
well.
Yes, but this is the only thing I disagree with you on, to be fair. So this is why I decided to, you know, talk about it. And I wouldn't even talk about it, but just many Ukrainians wanted me to. And I don't know if I did a good job or not. But overall, this is, again, trying to point out that this is pretty much the only thing I didn't like that you said, like in the entirety of your coverage of Ukraine, which, you know, is not bad. Not anywhere as bad as some other people who I will not name. Hassan.
Uh,
But you know, basically that.
well, then I'll
Yeah.
strive to make it worse so that we have more to talk about in the future.
Nah, don't do that.
Thank you very much
Be
for
good.
coming on. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it as well. I really do think you did fantastic, and actually returned me the faith in the leftists
Oh,
in Western, because they fucked up, dude.
yeah,
They
I
fucked
yeah,
up.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 I talk about this all the time. It's such an unbelievable fumbling of the ball. Um,
Yeah.
the you have it's the biggest layup in the universe. The entire Western world is lined up to defend a country from a fascist invasion, and the left starts sweating and tweedling their fingers. It's
Yeah,
genuinely
it's so
repulsive.
confusing. It's you know, it's like the most on the nose imperialist invasion, like old school style, you know, like that's a that uncovered imperialist invasion, like just without any like attempts to cover what they're doing. They literally say they want to re-educate us and to destroy Ukrainian identity. They like destroy our flags. They destroy our language. They say that our language is degenerate. They called Ukrainian identity basically a disease at this
No, they've
point.
said that,
And
yeah,
you
and the Western far right is saying that the Russia's invasion of Ukraine might be legitimate as a way of protecting them from like global liberalism, which is
Yeah.
literally a
Yeah,
Nazi
of course.
conspiracy theory. The idea that
Yeah.
like
The
expansion is
Jews,
necessary.
the
Yeah, no,
global elite.
literally, yeah,
Yeah.
completely, yeah, JQing it.
Actually, I actually got the guy who was a tanky who told me that I was part of some transatlantic elites or some shit. And
Hmm.
I was like, is he a Nazi? But he was like, no, I'm a glorious communist. And I was like, oh, are you sure about that, dude?
Uh,
Sounds suspicious to me. Yeah, and he was like, she has Azov tattoos. Like it's a meme basically at this
oh,
point.
interesting.
Yeah,
Wow, they have a lot going
and,
on.
and and yeah, and I was like, oh, no, only like Spyro the Dragon, like Final Fantasy and flowers and shit. Sorry. And he was like, oh yeah, you have Azov tattoos, but they will not accept you because you have a long nose. So he basically assumed I was a Jew, but was condemning my country for being anti-Semitic Nazis, while doing the stereotypes of Jews having long noses.
You would understand this
Good
if you
job.
had read Marx. All this fits within the greater theory. It all makes sense once you
I
know.
under Yeah, he said actually about theory. Shame that I did in fact read it. Nothing about long noses there. So, you know, it's very, very confusing sometimes for sure. But I do appreciate, like I said, the work you did, because boy was it bad. Only like two leftists I like is you and Loner Box, who is awesome. I talked to him 2 times, I think.
Well,
Really
we'll
enjoyed talking with him.
we'll see how things go with regards to the war. You know, obviously it's going to be a bit of a slowdown during winter because it's fucking cold
Yeah,
over there. I hope you're doing okay. Um,
I am. Yeah.
when you know,
Oh, actually, today was the missile strikes. They almost ruined the conversation
yeah,
because
yeah.
I
I
woke up to the explosions
woke up to those
today.
messages
Uh,
from you. Yeah. Oh my
yeah,
god.
I appreciate, by the way, you wishing me like not to, to blow up and shit.
Yeah, I hope
Be
you keep
careful on the
not
road.
doing that. That'd be great if you could
Yeah,
keep
that'd be
not
great.
blowing up. Um,
Basically, it was like four explosions, and I like went to the corridor and waited out, and the electricity went out for a bit, and I thought, fuck, I was about to have the conversation with Wash, and now it's all fucked up because of Russians. They just don't want us to talk apparently.
I
But
got the
our
Russians to
guys,
stop so we could have our convo.
oh, was it you? Thank you.
I went back to
It was
Kharkiv.
actually as a Kharkiv kit finder. Yeah, and you found those missiles and you like intercepted them before they, hit the infrastructure, I think.
If I could do that
With the
for
power.
Ukraine, I would. If only I had the power
Oh,
to.
if only we all did.
I hope
Yeah, we would stop.
I
Yeah,
hope you have a wonderful. Wait, what time is it over there?
too late. It's like 0:18, so it's
Jesus.
like I don't know in your AM PM,
I
but
hope you have a
like
wonderful night. I really appreciate you coming on, and I enjoyed the conversation very much. Uh, hopefully, when next we talk, I have not added to the list of grievances that you want to bring up with me.
don't worry. It's not you. The tears is just emotional. My
I
friend
fully get it.
probably is dead. Yeah, so it's not you, honestly. And I do wish we could talk about something more cheerful next time. Maybe like why Russians are fascist. Pretty
Yeah,
cheerful, I
or
think.
more Naruto.
Oh yeah, that's one too. Yeah.
Uh,
It's yeah, guy. Yeah, I think you appreciated the conversation. If you have me on again, then maybe we'll talk about something we more agree on than
of
disagree
course.
on.
Well,
Maybe some perspectives on
shout out your
Ukraine.
Twitter, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Sorry, I always forget it. Yeah, so basically, I have like a Twitter when you guys can donate stuff. You can support me on PayPal. I have like a PayPal email address there, and you can see on Twitter the work I do to help our troops. I mostly work with artillery brigades and yeah, who are in Kharkiv primarily. No, because I'm from Kharkiv. And yeah, so I think you can link it if you can. I probably
I
do
think
you
we have
have
a
it or
contact.
something, or can
Okay, we do. Wonderful.
Oh yeah, thank you, thank you to like everyone who listened to this conversation. And if you are able to, please do help out. We are bringing them medical supplies, aid, vests, all sorts of stuff that they need. It's pretty fucking nasty right now in terms of weather, so they do need like thermal wear and stuff like that, which we do provide for them. And I do hope that you guys don't think I'm a fucking Nazi, which leftist seems to do. Yeah,
Azov
I was in.
militant Anna came on stream to defend her Nazi regime, of course.
Yeah, people will say that 100%. I'm like, no, not going to bother with that even
I
because,
think my
yeah,
community is very unconcerned with the presence of Nazis in Ukraine. It has been
which is
overstated to
your,
such a ridiculous degree by Russian
yeah.
disinfo. There are more Nazis in the American military, I feel.
It honestly might be the true, yes. And also, I think that's props to you because of your coverage. I think they are well aware that this is a ridiculous point to make because you made it convincing arguments about that, and I appreciate that. That I do not get from your community all the Azov. Sorry, I just imagine the tanky voices to sound like that.
Soon we'll all
So
be
basically,
champions
this
of Azov.
preaching, yeah, yeah. Probably not. Probably not the best idea, but do appreciate your community because they have been pretty nice to me, surprisingly for the leftists. So
They'll keep it up too.
yeah,
Hopefully you have a
yeah,
wonderful night and stay warm, please.
yeah. Bye. Thank you a lot, and bye, guys.
Bye. Hello. Well, that was nice. That was a fun conversation. A couple of quick addendums, you know. I'm sure some people in chat have very strong opinions on that convo. I could tell because a lot of you were being pretty insufferable in both directions. Interestingly enough, Anna's absolutely not a Nazi apologist. I do think that she's way less concerned here with both the prominence of the ideology within. I know about Tate. Give me a minute. Within the Azov battalion, and with the potential for them to be hiding their power level. But that's like a very subjective thing. You know what I mean? Wait, hold on, just a second. You guys are such fucking retards. Anyway, the so it's also obviously like a very heated topic for, which is fine. That's fine. We're humans. That's all right. Um, to know. Can you clip this talk? Why would I not? Have you been on my channel? I'm finishing the thing now. Wait for the Tate. Just shh. Oh my god. Anyway, what was I getting at? Yeah. I do think that she's a lot less concerned with the prominence of the ideology and the risk of it being sort of normalized through ultranationalism. She kind of said it herself, right? She said, like, okay, well, they were the ones who defended me, but that's like how it starts, right? Like, that's how they legitimize themselves. Like, oh, they're far right, but they were the ones who stood up and defended us. That's literally like the line, like every time, you know? I don't worry that much about like Azov taking over the country because again, like it's a very, very, very small, I'm not that concerned. But like, yeah, I also don't know what was up with the logo insignia stuff at the end. I mean, even Wikipedia says that it's a Wolf's Angel and the Black Sun. They changed this logo in 2015 because it was too Nazi, you know? Now it's this, which just has the very swastika looking Wolf's Angel in like a lightning bolt angle. Anyway, still looks kind of sus. Yeah, it's the Azov battalion. I still fully believe that the Azov battalion is like heavily aligned with the Nazi politic, but again, like I don't know how you would even go about that. You would have to like it's not like there's a poll. I don't know how you'd go about that. It's the impression I've gotten, I guess. They were a lot more openly Nazi back in 2014. Anna says that over the past decade they've softened up, which might be true. It's genuinely possible that a lot of the worst behavior of the Azov battalion is behind it, and that like back in 2014, 2015, they were like full on Nazi, like neo-Nazi, like post-band right whatevers, and that since then they've sort of slowed down a bit. It's possible that they're hiding their power level. It's not really possible to know. The broader conversation that we were having, though, which is one that Anna does have a point on, though it depends on the degree of like semantic specificity you want to lay on, is one about like essentialism, right? So like, for example, if you're talking about like the Wehrmacht in World War II, and it's like, dude, a bunch of Wehrmacht died, yeah, because they lost the battle, like, hopefully this isn't a controversial position, but obviously if you zoom in on a group of Wehrmacht people, a lot of them individually will be good people. That's the case for any military, right? She didn't like the comparisons of the Wehrmacht, but I'm just using the Wehrmacht here because the Wehrmacht are like the most Nazi military because it was the military of the Nazis. Like if you zoom in on any group, same with like the Taliban, right? Like if the U.S. invades Iraq, wait, we actually did that. That's crazy. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, I don't give a fuck if like Saddam Hussein and his soldiers die. Because let's be clear, Saddam Hussein was a monster, right? And then it's like, oh, okay, well, I don't care if like U.S. soldiers die. No, if you zoom in far enough, you're always going to see good people, no matter what the group is. I talk about like I don't really care if Russians die as they invade Ukraine, even though I know a lot of those Russians are like scared, like terrified, brainwashed 18-year-old conscripts who like deserve better. I just want to be clear, like I have made broad statements about not really caring if people who want me dead ideologically die, because again, like if you're a Nazi, ideologically you want me dead. Nazism and murder of all the queers, that's like a one-to-one thing. There's really not much leeway there. Um and what's more, it's not even like a passive affirmation of existing values, it's a reassertion of reactionary values. So for example, There are probably a lot of people in like some parts of Africa who want all gay people dead, but that's because they've adopted the dominant culture of the area that they live in, because they live in a very reactionary area. But to be a Nazi in like Ukraine means you had to have been surrounded by every opportunity to not be a Nazi and then still became one. You know what I mean? It's not just I am in this time period and I am reactionary. It's I am observing progressivism and choosing to reject it. Um, which which is probably not a good thing to do. But anyway, yeah, I can't care that much about the death of a person who ideologically wants me dead. But at the same time, like every Nazi hypothetically can be converted, right? Isn't that also the case in America? Well, there are American Nazis, yeah. Um, every Nazi can be converted, like hypothetically, right? Not in practice, no, not everyone can be, but anyone can be. There's always a chance. So I do think it's important to adopt the kind of anti-essentialist perspective on the whole thing, because the essentialism will get you in trouble in the long run, if that makes sense. Like, we saw this with Westerners who were saying that Russian refugees shouldn't be allowed into Estonia. Do you remember? Like, Russian refugees were trying to pour into Estonia to escape the general conscription, and Westerners were like, no, you stay back there. And like, their first level ideology there is support Ukraine, fuck Russia, which is good, but they don't do it in a nuanced way. They do it in an essentialist way, where it's like, okay, well, if Russia's the bad guy in this conflict, that means the Russian refugees are part of the bad team, and that we shouldn't be nice to them or whatever. You're seeing like a failure in the analysis because they're not willing to regard. This is one of the reasons why, like, theoretically lefties should have the best foreign policy, even though we fucking don't. It's because like class analysis is critical to understanding the difference between what the Russian people want and what the Russian elite like convince them is good for them. You know what I mean? Like, there's a like a multi-tiered structure of coerced consent that like really influences the way this stuff pans out. Anyway, I wanted to go over all this just because I think it's a conversation worth having. Um, Obviously, I feel like Anna's concern was that the Azov battalion group is still ultimately like serving on the right side, which they are if it's just a Ukraine versus Russia thing. But from my perspective, it's more of a right-wing ideology versus left-wing ideology thing, in which the far-right people in Azov battalion are incidentally on the right side of the conflict, but ideologically in line with the systems that caused the conflict to begin with. But then again, not every single person in the Azov battalion is themselves a Nazi. So, yeah, but, I hope everyone understands where I'm coming from and where she was coming from. Because, again, I don't think what she did was Nazi apologism. I don't think that's the narrative at all. Okay. Are we good? Are we good?